All right, it looks like we are live now.
Great. And I'm trying to remember because I only heard the second part of your comments. Are we waiting on the mayor or not waiting on the mayor?
As far as I know, he's supposed to be attending. I don't see Rick on here though either.
Okay, we'll give him one more minute and then we'll get going because everyone's got a busy day. All right, let's get going and the mayor can catch up. If he, oh, there he is. Here he comes. All right. Hello, Mayor.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hope
Okay.
y'all had a good weekend.
Yes, thank you. All right, we have everybody here, so I'd like to call to order the July 19th, 2021 meeting of the City of Charleston Traffic and Transportation Committee and ask that Councilmember Jackson lead us in an invocation or a moment of silence, please.
Thank you. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for the beginning of this new week, one that's important to the future of our city as our commissions and review boards and council committees and itself will meet. You deliberate all that you have put before us. We trust your wisdom and your will. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
And Bethany, before we go any further, I just got a little thing in my ear that said recording had stopped. I don't know if that's the case or not.
I'm about to restart it. Whenever the hosting switches, for some reason it stops our recording. So give me just a second.
Okay, great.
There we go.
There we go. All right, good. So back to our business. First is the approval of minutes from June 14th, 2021.
I'll second.
Any additions, deletions, substitutions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next on our agenda is application for original certificate of public convenience and necessity. Mr. Somerville, first day as our interim director. Welcome back to the position.
Thank you, I think. Yes, we received this one application, vetted it through legal. Susan Herdita and her team looked at it and we're requesting approval.
Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions from Mr. Somerville? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next on our agenda, item number 4, and there's Ms. Halverson. I see her come behind the screen, is an ordinance to amend chapter 19 of article, was that 16 of the Code of City of Charleston? Ms. Halverson.
Good morning. As we
Morning.
discussed last time, we talked about adding 6 additional nighttime decals for the pedicabs. And we also talked about limiting the number of renewals that the franchise agreements could have, since it's sort of an automatic type of renewal system. And so out of that discussion, I drafted this ordinance, which will provide the additional 6 nighttime decals, and then make the renewal period for 1 additional 5-year period. So that would give the contracts 10 years. And then after that point, we would rebid. And I just want to point out with the additional nighttime decals that we will have to bid those out separately. So we'll do separate contracts for those or amend the existing ones once we get those on board.
And those decals, just like everything else, will have to go through 3 readings of this ordinance before they become available, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
I said those decals won't be available till we've given this ordinance 3 readings.
That's correct. So not until after August the 17th.
Okay, great.
And then we'll start the bidding process right away and hopefully have them on board soon in September.
Okay. Before we get into
Mr. Chair.
discussion, can I just get a motion, please?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll move for approval.
All right.
But
Do I have a second? Okay.
Second.
We have a second. All right, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. I mean, obviously I'm in favor of doing this if it's the will of the committee. I was hoping that maybe at the same time we could amend the word rickshaw to be officially pedicab. I think it's more representative and it's also not very pejorative in today's lexicon. So that would be my suggestion to add that amendment.
Without objection, I think that that's probably a good idea. All right, any other questions for Ms. Halverson on the amendments to the rickshaw ordinance? Now the pedicab ordinance.
I'll make that change for second reading.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for doing that, by the way. Appreciate it. So unless there's any other questions, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Number 5 on our agenda is build grant presentation. I do see Mr. Kronsberg on my screen. I see Mr. Most. I see Ms. Sharo. All right, here they all come.
Good
Who's
morning,
going to take
everyone.
the lead? Good morning.
Good morning.
Jason, do you need me to stop sharing the agenda so that you can
Yeah,
share?
I have
Okay.
a slideshow to share with everyone. So,
I see
Good
that the
morning.
mayor has his hand up. So before we turn it over to you, Jason, I'm going to call on the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just wanted to publicly acknowledge the tragic fatality that occurred on the Ashley River Bridge late Saturday night. And that's the reason we're doing this, to have safe passage back and forth between the peninsula and West Ashley. Hopefully when this bridge is completed, an incident like that just wouldn't happen again. Of course, we'll have to direct all bicyclists over to the new bridge. We don't know a lot. The incident is under investigation. The young man had a Texas address, and so notification is, I think, now happened with his family out in Texas. But anyway, I just want to acknowledge that tragic incident, and that's what we're all about, is trying to make this a safer place for everybody.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Unless there's any other preliminary comments, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Kronsberg, and I think you now have screen sharing capability.
thank you, everyone. So I'm going to turn my video off just to make sure my bandwidth stays wide. If that's a thing. So I'm going to go ahead and share a PowerPoint presentation and go through the project. Let's see. All right. So good morning, everyone, again. Here's a little glimpse of the latest and greatest concept. You will see on the right-hand side a rendering of the bobtail swing movable span with the Ashley River crossing bridge. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We'll come back around to that at the end. As you all know, the location, as the mayor just referenced, is a project to bridge the peninsula west of the Ashley with a safe bicycle and pedestrian crossing. You see it here. I'm not sure if you can all see my cursor. It is to the south of the existing Legree Bridge. What we have been doing, working with our federal sponsor. Some of this is a bit of a recap, but as you all know, we're a direct recipient of the federal build grant, working with stakeholders, Charleston County Medical University, HDR is our design built support consultant, and working with the FHWA and the SCDOT. They have been unbelievable help in guiding us through this process. A little history of the project. Of course, in July 2019, we applied for the grant for another attempt. We received that grant. November 2019, we were notified of the award, the $18 million grant for the standalone pedestrian bridge. We've hired HDR in September of 2020 to help us through the design build support services, which will end up in a RFP at the end. And we were notified not too long ago that the federal government and a fiscal year 2021 Consolidated Appropriations Act. That in that act, it included the following provision that reappropriated all of the 2019 build grant funds and extended the obligation date by a year to September 22 due to the COVID-related difficulties in coordinating and getting projects through the federal system. So some of you that are on the selection committee received notices that those dates had changed, and so here we are. The FHWA submitted that grant extension on our behalf, which was awarded. So that initial obligation date changed from September 22 or 21 to 22. So we continue to work through the process. The diagram at the bottom of your screen is simply the elevation of the bridge as it crosses the river with the open span in the middle. What have we been doing? We've been working through the NEPA process, which is an extensive process. What is NEPA? NEPA requires all agencies to assess the environmental effects of projects and coordinate throughout multiple agencies. So what are we doing? I won't read every single one of these. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. I'm going to keep going through this as quickly as possible. Please let me know if you have any questions. Of course, we started with our natural resource assessments. We went through many survey processes, including wetlands delineation, got those plats approved, did underwater cultural resource reports and surveys, developed traffic studies, went through a phase 1 environmental assessment process, had the bridge engineers evaluate multiple movable span types to evaluate the efficiency and what would work best here in Charleston, developed some conceptual plans, worked through the Coast Guard and the navigational study, went through NOAA to establish and analyze the essential fish habitat, hydrology reports, coordinated and conducted stakeholder interviews with the Preservation Society and the Historic Charleston Foundation, ongoing coordination with the South Carolina Department of Transportation, geotechnical reports, and we just conducted our stakeholder meeting with the Ashley Marina, which is just adjacent to our project. So these last steps you see in the flow chart are our next steps. So lots of stuff been going on behind the scenes where nobody's seeing a lot, but lots of work happening. We closed our virtual public meeting with an overwhelming yes from all responses, over 84% positive. Of course, there's some naysayers in there. The pie charts on the left simply show, do you anticipate using the bridge for recreational purposes? And then the next one, which is a little bit more red, do you anticipate using the bridge to commute to your place of employment via bicycle? So some of the people that responded may have lived in Mount Pleasant or North Charleston. So that's why it's a little more red, because they will not be able to commute across the bridge, but 84% positive. Back to the flow chart. What are we doing? What is our current contract status? So working with the Department of Transportation, working on a memorandum with them to determine operations and maintenance of the movable span, completed aerial mapping, field surveys, submitted traffic studies to the SCDOT to looking at the 3 intersections that are also part of this project: Wapu Road, Folly Road, and then the Lockwood Drive intersection. Again, if you're not aware, Wapu and Folly are both intersections that are part of our grant that improve access along the Greenway as you approach the Ashley River Crossing Bridge. First draft of our NEPA documents have been submitted. The structural stuff, the alignments set, conceptual plans complete, movable span type evaluated and complete, ongoing provisioning documents with the Department of Transportation, completed our hydrology and hydraulic design, submitted our geotechnical reports to the FHWA, which is the Federal Highway Administration. Got some comments back. We're working through those comments. pending utility coordination, completed our subsurface utility engineering, no right-of-way coordination, because we're not in the right-of-way other than along the roadways. And then we have submitted a second draft of the request for qualifications to the FHWA for additional review. And then the next steps are to schedule the early coordination meetings. And then after we issue a RFQ, which there will be another schedule upcoming, is to go for the RFP, which will be our next deadline for the obligation date. So again, all this stuff I just went through, low land use, no impacts, cultural resources, SHPOs ongoing. That's the end of the NEPA process. No socioeconomic impacts, no environmental justice impacts, biological resource coordination complete. And you'll see at the bottom, we finished our community engagement online due to COVID and evaluating water resources and hazardous wastes. So where are we now? What is our schedule for the future? Here's our anticipated timeline. As I stated earlier, our schedule got delayed a little bit due to the COVID delays in Washington. Those deadlines were extended for a year, which gives us great time to dot our I's, cross our T's. So where are we? So we're anticipating advertising our request for qualifications on 8/23. And in that time, we will receive those design build team qualifications. We'll sit down with our selection committee, and then we'll identify shortlisted teams that are the best teams applied. Those teams will in turn get the request for proposal. So the shortlisted teams will narrow them down to the best teams with the selection committee. They will get the RFP. We anticipate 10/22 for design build contract negotiations, with hopeful award of a contract in November. And then hopefully a notice to proceed. There's a typo there. But going through getting complete designs by the 9th month of 2023, with the hopeful completion of 2025. Now, these dates are a bit flexible right now. We know we have our obligation date of September of next year, but we are working very hard to get that completed early to issue the RFP. So then we go through just I'm going to give you a quick view of the intersections that are approved in the part of the project. This is the Greenway at Wapu Road. Simply here, a different orientation, but create a better, safer crossing with better crosswalks and better visual crossings for safety. Lockwood Drive intersection. This is the existing intersection as you see it. Coming off of the bridge, you come into the peninsula this way, or the medical district to B Street that way. So again, a little bit of a rotated orientation, but the current plans show the existing radius that you see underneath that purple hatching is the existing roadway. The new plans, in order to create the safe crossing into the metal district, will tighten that radius up a bit, give a little bit more gathering space at the intersection in order for bikes and peds to get across the Lockwood intersection into the medical district, as well as continuing on the sidewalk here towards the peninsula. The Wesley Road, Folly Road, Windermere intersection. So the Greenway comes across here, a little bit of a different orientation. Instead of coming, right now you have to come across Windermere Boulevard, cross the crosswalk around. So our goal is to get more of a direct connection from the Greenway to the top of your screen, across Folly and Wesley to this next median, and then directly across to the Greenway. So those coordinations are ongoing with the Department of Transportation, and we're hopeful to get that more direct connection. Alignment of the project. 25 Folly is our park site here. next to the 35 Folly condominiums. The proposed path comes along the shoulder. There might be a short bridge section here where this creek comes closer to the road. And then as you pass by the Round Holiday Inn, you get to the base of the bridge where you veer off into the proper bridge section of the project. You will see here the current alignment with some overlooks on each side of the movable span. This is the movable span, and the channel lines up with the existing channel. This shows that bobtail swing, which is a single pivot point, rotates to the bottom to open that channel to boat traffic, and then it would close back there. Continuing on across the river, we dovetail down a little bit closer to the bridge to get back on the at grade location of the pathway. What does the movable span look like? Currently, based on our engineer's evaluation, the bobtail swing is what you see here. Bobtail swing is a single pylon with engines inside of this. This is where it rotates. It's got a stay cable suspension type engineering. So you have the concrete pylon, which will be about 60 feet tall, 20-foot clearance for Coast Guard requirements. And then as you're coming along the span, it'll look somewhat like a wishbone, if you will. This is the view looking through the span, 18-foot clear along the approaches to the span, a little bit wider in the span. And then I end up with a graphic rendering of what that bobtail swing image would look like. So this is the current plan to bridge the gap, if you will. And at the end of this first contract, we will have 30% drawings, which will be issued to the design build contracting team to take us through fruition of this project. So this is the first public showing of the current concept. Again, we've shared these with some of our stakeholders, and you'll see the World War I bridge in the background, the current Legree Bridge in the middle ground, with the Ashley River Crossing Bridge in the front ground. So that's a lot of information I've given to everyone, and hopefully not too long of a period of time. And we have Terry Shiro and Michael Darby on the line for any additional detailed questions any of you may have. So I would open the floor to anyone for any questions or comments.
Well, first off, thank you, Jason, very much for that. Just really quickly, will you just comment to the committee before there's any questions about the reaction of the different stakeholders as you show them this? I think it's important that they get a sense of what the sort of reaction has been to this out there as you've shown it in a limited way to some of the public.
Sure. So we met with Historic Charleston Foundation and the Preservation Society, and they were in full support. They really liked the renderings. They liked the style and design of the bridge. They've submitted letters of support for our process with the State Historic Preservation Office. And then the next immediate stakeholder was the marinas down here on the right-hand side. They were pleasantly surprised and relieved at the distance from their marina. We're still in coordination from them, determining just to make sure they have the proper spacing that they need for their slip owners to get in and out of the marina. You know, the only thing they had ever seen before was the image from the build grant. So again, they were pleasantly surprised to see how this project really pays attention to their marina operations. So those were the three immediate stakeholder groups we've met with. Next step is to go to the medical district, and again, working with the Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration the entire time, and they have been incredible help guiding us through this process.
Great. Okay. With that, any questions for members of the committee? I see Councilmember Jackson with her hand up, so we'll begin with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that first explanation over the reactions of our stakeholders, because I was totally curious about the preservation community, and I'm really glad to hear the answer. When I worked at the National Trust in the 80s, primarily, it was sort of the job of the educators, the architects, and the lawyers that staffed a lot of support for communities like Charleston back then to sort of redirect preservation groups' attention that we're not supposed to be mirroring what we could never recreate as an old, architectural structure. So they were always championing what they called complementary contrast. So I think that this is a real sweet spot of meeting that objective to make it beautiful, but not try to recreate any of the features of the other two companion bridges. Will there be like some sort of show and tell for the Bike Ped Advisory Committee soon, or what's the plan for that, Jason?
We can. We've been working with Katie and Charleston Moves the entire time. She's been part of some of these actually stakeholder groups, but we can certainly provide another coordination meeting if that's what we want.
Yeah, we'll have a meeting of that committee in the fall, and we'll definitely get a brief update.
So,
yeah, great. I mean, that group is just such a booster community. You really want to keep them in the loop. So thank you very much.
And Councilmember Jackson, if I will, it's a great point that you made. So it's an interesting progression of bridge design, if you will. You have the World War I bridge on the left. You have the Legree Bridge, which is a little bit more modern. And then you have our bridge to the Ashley River Crossing Bridge to the right. So it's an interesting progression in design there.
Okay, Mayor Tecklenburg, I see you have your hand up. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to ask Jason if he would explain a little bit about our requirements with the Federal Highway Administration regarding funding. And that's relevant because just tomorrow afternoon at Ways and Means, we'll be asking y'all to approve a letter for me to send to the Federal Highway Administration. So Jason, if you bring everybody up to date on that, and then maybe I'll follow up with another comment.
Certainly. So as part of the process, our consultant team conducted a cost estimate. As you know, that our direct grant, that's a direct recipient of the grant, the federal process, we were awarded $18.1 million with the city match and the county match. Anything estimated over that original award, it is incumbent upon the city to fund the gap. However we make it happen, it is a requirement of the grant that we do that. So our first cost estimate came in a bit over the proposed budget in the grant, approximately $2 million over. And when we get into the design build process, hopefully we'll get that refined. And but as part of the process, we are required to finalize our grant agreement with the FHWA to submit the letter that the funding will be covered, and whatever means we cover it by the city. So in order to finalize the grant, that letter that the mayor referenced will be coming to city council that identifies the fact that the city will cover the gap. I know that was not real straightforward and clear, but that's
it makes perfect sense. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
So just to follow up, it's just kind of a blanket letter at this point. Obviously, it's an estimate that will be refined as we go further down the line. It doesn't preclude us from going back to our other funding partners and asking them to participate. It doesn't preclude us from going to someone new and asking them to participate. But I must acknowledge that at the end of the day, we are responsible for making up any gap. The good news is even if we end up using some general fund reserves, that the bridge is in the West Edge TIF district. And even if that TIF district were to generate funds, 5 or 10 years from now that are excess, we would be able to reimburse ourselves, so to speak. We could reimburse any general fund with TIF funds when they become available down the road if need be. So I just thought I'd share that.
Right. Jason, I take it that someone on your team that's in close contact with the DOT and keeping them informed as to what's going on, and they've seen all this?
Absolutely. So Terry, I wanted to make that point. Terry and Michael, they're in the trenches on this thing. They're coordinating with the SCDOT and the FHWA on a daily basis. And
Right.
that was a requirement from the FHWA in order to get the final grant agreement approved, that letter be submitted.
And I take it also with the county as one of our funding partners, because we'll probably have to have some conversations with them as well on the way, right?
And their match was approved in their current budget. So that is approved.
How much was that?
What's
Mr.
that
Mayor?
number?
Yeah, what was that number? Was it three,
Yeah.
3 million?
Yeah, I believe that was it.
3? That's what I thought. Okay, great. Well, we'll warm them up for a little more. I guess, Jason, one of the things that just from looking at your timeline that just sort of dawns on me, not really, but I mean, it's not getting any cheaper to build this. So the faster we can put ourselves in a position to get everything in place and get the approval process going and getting our design build team, the less we're going to have to go out there and look for some help from our funding partners, right?
That's right. And in the schedule, we don't anticipate taking the entire extension.
Okay, great.
We're moving along as quickly as we can. And the goal is to get those requests for qualifications completed and advertise that RFP as quickly as possible. That is our deadline. So for the first requirement, so April of 22 is our longest goal to issue those RFPs.
Great. All right. Any more questions for any member of the committee? I see we have a late entry. Councilmember Shade is tuned in, not a member of our committee, but we're glad to have him. We've just received a report, Councilmember, from Mr. Kronsberg and his team on the Ashley Crossing. While he's here, if you have any questions, I'll recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to comment that you look like the doctor that CBS News uses on their expert opinion guy with your dark sweater. So your status has just been elevated tremendously with that.
Great. A TV doctor is what I've always aspired to. Thank you.
So I caught the last tail end of Jason's report. We are on schedule. Is that the bottom line with all the stuff? And I saw the email that I don't know if you caught it too, for the disgruntled constituent who once it was taking so long, and so get our act together, I think is what she was complaining about. But this is a long process, and I'm sure the permitting part of this is probably the worst part of getting it off the ground.
I think Mr. Kronsberg gave us a very comprehensive overview of all of the bureaucracy that's involved with this and the number of steps they have to take to get us in a place so we can actually get final approval and go get our team in place. So I feel confident that they're moving with all due speed and going to be a little bit ahead of the schedule that they've currently been given.
Well, thanks for allowing me to jump in. And I just, our interest is always about this thing being built and how it's going to look and where it's going to land. I think we're all just anxious about having this completed. So thank you all for all your work on this. I appreciate all the hard work.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Kronsberg and his team? So Jason, my thought is, as chairman of this committee, unless any of the members object, that we'll let you off the hook for a month or two and not come every month. You've got a lot of work to do, which is very obvious. But if there is a milestone that's reached with some good news, if you can just report it back to us, that would be great. If not, we'll maybe hear from you again in October, November timeframe, if that suits the committee. Okay. I don't see any objections, so I'll take silence as assent to that. All right. Any other?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Councilmember
Mr.
Brady.
Chairman. Yeah, I was just going to suggest, since we do have that timetable that was laid out in the presentation, I think quarterly updates are fine. Just that way the public stays in tune with it, and we kind of are proactive about getting the information out there. So even if there's maybe something that didn't move immediately, things could change or be impacted down the line that we could get an update on. So I think quarterly is probably appropriate on that one.
Great. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Kronsberg? If not, thank you very much. We'll get you scheduled up, and thanks for the update. Last item on our agenda, I believe, is just a general discussion. Mr. Somerville, is there anything from your end that you'd like to bring to the attention of the committee?
Just ask the committee to bear with TNT for a little while now. Of course, last Friday losing Mr. Benjamin, and this Friday we're actually losing Judy Kreitz. After 20 years of service with the city, she's decided to retire. So we're going to be short-staffed. We'll still be mighty. We'll be responsive. Just bear with us a little bit.
I think we can
Mr.
accomplish that. Yes, Councilmember Jackson.
Maybe we could put the mayor on the spot to ask about the hiring process for the director, since Robbie's acting.
The position has been posted, and applications have come in. Not a whole lot, but it's posted right now. We'll review applications as they come in. There's not like a deadline. It's just an open posting right now.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Mr. Somerville, do you have any update on Cumming Street while we've got you here?
Well, what I was told, talking about the cave-in on Cumming, they found like an additional 35, 40 feet of archway that needed repair. So hopefully by Tuesday, the work should be complete and Cumming Street should be open.
Great, thank you. All right. Anything else from any member of the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Unless there's objection, we are adjourned. We'll see everybody tomorrow evening. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.